A Flood of Friends. Written by Barbara Duvall. Pictures by Dennis Hockerman. Something was tickling Christopher's whiskers as he lay in bed.
"Quit!" he squeaked in his sleep. "Oh, don't tickle me."
Then he opened one eye and giggled. It was just the wind tickling him. He breathed in. Oh, what a wonderful smell! It must be lilacs. He had just been dreaming of another beautiful spring morning, about this time last year, when something very special happened. And this is what it was. It was the nicest spring morning yet. Christopher jumped out of bed and brushed his whiskers and gave his tail a tweak to get the kink out of it. He looked out the window. He couldn't wait to play. But Ted, and Ned, his cousins, were away on vacation, and his friend Mandy had to work. As Christopher sadly buttoned the straps on his overalls, he heard Mama Churchmouse. "Come on, Christopher. Breakfast is ready." Christopher and his mother always had breakfast together, since Papa went to work very early.
"Mama,"
Christopher glumly said as he sat down.
"I wish I had someone to play with."
He picked up a piece of fruit. "I wish I could play with you, dear, but I must go shopping this morning. Mandy's mother is going to take care of your baby sister."
"I wish I had a friend who could always play."
"That would be nice, but sometimes it's nice to play alone."
"But, oh, Mama, I so want someone else today. Where could I find a friend?"
Mama leaned back in her chair. "Well, I don't know exactly where you can find a friend, but I do know how."
"You do? How?"
Christopher asked eagerly. "The Bible says, a man who has friends must himself be friendly."
"Why, I'm friendly."
I think God means being a friend.
Like being kind and sharing with someone?
Yes. Chris frowned.
"But there's not anyone around for me to be a friend to, Mama."
Well, the day isn't over yet. After breakfast, Christopher put on his sweater and went outside. It was such a beautiful day. A day to do just anything. Why, it would be a perfect day to roller skate. But that wasn't fun alone. It would also be a nice day to play ball.
"But how can you play ball alone?"
Christopher thought gloomily. He scuffed his toes in the dirt. What good was a nice day if you were all alone? He sat down on the steps of the church in a pout.
"Good morning,"
said a little voice. Christopher looked up in surprise. Another little mouse was standing in front of him.
"Hello, who are you?"
said Christopher.
"My name is Freddie Fieldmouse. What's yours?" "Christopher Churchmouse. I live here in the church."
He looked critically at the strange little mouse. He was very plain-looking. His clothes were shabby. He was dusty all over, and in his paw he carried an old beat-up suitcase with stuff hanging out of it on all sides.
"Where are you going?"
"I don't know," Freddie said quietly.
"You don't know?"
squeaked Christopher.
"How come?" "Well," said Freddie, "it's a long story, but to make it short, I'm looking for a new home. You see, I'm a field mouse from the country, but my home was washed away by spring floods. I need a nice dry home. You don't know of any around here, do you?"
Christopher looked Freddie over again.
"Nope," he answered. "Not here. You see, we're all church mice. We live in the church." "I see," said the field mouse in a disappointed voice. "Maybe I can find something on down the road. It was nice to meet you, Mr. Churchmouse."
Christopher watched the little mouse trudge down the road lugging the suitcase.
"He just wouldn't fit in with us,"
Chris thought. Now he could just barely see him, far down the road. Suddenly, Clristopher jumped to his feet and ran down the road.
Freddie! Freddie Fieldmouse! Wait! Wait!
Freddie stopped in the middle of the road.
Freddie, Clristopher panted, I'm sorry. There is room in the church. Come on.
He grabbed for Freddie's suitcase.
Let's hurry.
But Freddie wouldn't let go of his suitcase.
What's the matter? I said you can come live at the church. But wait, sputtered Freddie. You don't know. I didn't tell you. I'm not alone.
You aren't? Questioned Clristopher, looking around curiously to see who was with him.
No, I'm not. Well, at least I won't be. You see, my family has sent me ahead to look for homes for all of us field mice. All of our homes were destroyed.
Oh, said Clristopher in an understanding way.
Well, we probably have enough room for all of you. How many are there? Well, with my Aunt Freda and her 10 children, there would be, 18, I guess, Freddie said quietly. I'm sure you don't have that much room, so I'll just be going along.
Clristopher grabbed Freddie.
Let's go see my mama, Freddie. She will know if we have enough room. Let's go ask her. I don't know. I don't want to cause you any trouble. Come on, Clristopher interrupted. I'm your friend, Freddie, and I'm going to help you. Let's go.
And with that, he took Freddie's suitcase and tugged Freddie along. Just then, they saw Mama carrying her market basket out on the road.
Mama!
Clristopher hurried toward her.
Mama, this is my new friend, Freddie Fieldmouse.
Why, how nice, exclaimed Mama. Where are you from, Freddie?
The country, ma'am. Mama, said Clristopher anxiously, do we have any room in the church? What I mean is, Freddie's home and his family's have been destroyed by the spring floods. Freddie's family has sent him ahead to look for homes for them. We have room, don't we, Mama?
Why, I'm sure we do, Clristopher, answered Mama. We have an old storeroom that we can turn into apartments very easily. Where is your family now, Freddie?
They're coming along slowly with all of the children and mice babies. They can't travel very fast.
Well, we must get busy, said Mama briskly. Do you think they will be here by lunchtime?
I expect so, but you certainly don't have...
Clristopher, I must go on to the store. You take Freddie home and begin cleaning up that storeroom. I'll be right back and stir up some of my good crumb stew. With a flounce of her skirt, Mama bustled down the road. The two mice boys worked very hard, sweeping and dusting the old storeroom and carting away some rubbish. By the time Mama was back, it was shining clean. Freddie went down the road to meet his family. The delicious smell of crumb stew was filling the air when he brought them to the Churchmouse door.
How can we ever thank you?
Said Freddie's father as they were introduced. Oh, think nothing of it, answered Mama. And soon all the little children and their mamas and papas were hungrily eating crumb stew. Clristopher and Freddie bustled about helping to serve them. Freddie was so happy, his eyes were shining. Clristopher's face was beaming as he thought of how he now had a whole kitchen full of friends. The next few days were very busy ones as the Churchmouse family helped the field mice get settled in their new apartments. Then Aunt Snootie and her family arrived back from vacation.
Are they here?
Asked Aunt Snootie, coming into the Churchmouse home. Mama looked up. Why, who do you mean?
Those pesky field mice,
answered Aunt Snootie. Oh, no, they're in their own apartments. They're all settled in now.
Well, I never,
exclaimed Aunt Snootie, peering at Mama through her glass eyepiece.
I can't imagine what has gotten into you, letting those field mice clutter up your storeroom with all their junk and eat all your food.
Why, don't you think we should help a mouse family that is in need? Questioned Mama in surprise.
Well, maybe a church mouse family, but certainly not field mice. They certainly aren't going to freeload on us.
and Aunt Snootie flounced out and slammed the door. "How sad," said Mama. One night, sometime later, Papa Churchmouse suddenly woke up, knowing that something was very wrong. He sat up sniffing, feeling danger all around him. He carefully put his feet down on the floor. There was water there, up to his ankles. "Mama, Mama, wake up. Take the baby. There's water all over the floor. You must go to a higher place right away. Chris and I will wake the others." Clristopher and Papa ran all over the church basement, awaking the other church mice and field mice. "We must all get up on the steps. It looks like a water pipe has burst. The whole basement is flooding." The church was filled with mice squealing with terror. Clristopher helped the grown-up mice swim the mice babies to safety. They held the babies' heads high above the water, then handed them up to their mamas. Mama Churchmouse was counting all of the mice on the steps. "Papa," she squeaked, "I don't see Grandpa and Grandma Churchmouse and Uncle Rudy and Aunt Snootie's family." Suddenly, Clristopher realized that Freddie Fieldmouse and his family were missing too. They had been right behind them an hour ago, but now they were gone, and the water was rising. "Freddie!" wailed Clristopher. "Freddie! Where are you?" But he didn't hear an answer, and he began to cry. Just then, there was a little sound from the water. It was the sound of baby mice crying. Peering around the corner of the stairs, he saw Freddie and his family. Each field mouse had a baby church mouse in his paws, holding them high above the water. And there were Uncle Rudy, Aunt Snootie, and their older children, Ced, Ted, and Ned, swimming in the water. And floating on some small pieces of wood were Grandpa and Grandma Churchmouse.
"Papa, look! The field mice have saved the rest of our family!"
squealed Clristopher excitedly. The mice reached the steps. Aunt Snootie was crying.
"But you rescued Aunt Snootie,"
said Clristopher. Aunt Snootie turned around to Freddie's family. "Oh, please, forgive me for the awful things I've said about you. I've been terribly, well, snooty." At that, all of the mice began to laugh and hug each other, and the field mice never returned to their houses in the country, but they remained in the church, where they had found true friendship. Our Bible verse for this story says, "A man who has friends must himself be friendly." Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 24. I'd like for you to say that verse with me so that you will be sure to remember it. A man who has friends must himself be friendly. Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 24. In this story, why was Clristopher sad and lonely? Why did Clristopher not want Freddie Fieldmouse for a friend at first? How did Clristopher and his family show real friendship for the field mice? What did the field mice do for the church mice?
If you're looking for a special friend, one upon whom you can depend, when you are lonely, heartsick within, Jesus will be your friend. A forever friend is he, forever he will be. When you're lonely and heartsick within, Jesus will be your friend. On him you can depend. He'll be your forever friend. He'll leave you never, a friend forever. He'll be your forever friend. If you're looking for someone to share, for someone to love and really him. Learn to obey. Jesus will show the way. A forever friend is he. Forever he will be. When you're lonely and heartsick within, Jesus will be your friend. On him you can depend. He'll be your forever friend. He'll leave you never. A friend forever. He'll be your forever friend.
The Tattletale Tongue, written by Barbara Duvall. Pictures by Dennis Hockerman. Tilly Teacher stood on the steps of the schoolhouse and rang the bell to call the mice children into school. They trooped in noisily, carrying books and lunch buckets, laughing and talking together. Soon they were settled at their desks, as Miss Tilly called each name.
Mandy Mouse, said Miss Tilly.
Here, said Mandy.
Freddie Fieldmouse,
Continued Miss Tilly.
here.
Answered Freddie.
Said Churchmouse,
Said Miss Tilly. There was no answer. Miss Tilly looked up in surprise as Freddie explained,
Said and Ted aren't here, Miss Tilly.
Why, that's unusual, said Miss Tilly. I've never known those mice boys to miss school. I wonder. Just then the door burst open and Said and Ted ran in, dropping their books and homework papers.
Good morning, Miss Tilly,
Ted gasped, scrambling on the floor to pick up the mess.
I'm sorry we're late, but we had a problem at home,
Explained Said, helping Ted pick up some books.
Well, sometimes things do happen,
Soothed Miss Tilly.
I hope it wasn't a serious problem. Well, I guess it is serious. You see, my mother's gold pen has been lost, and she's awfully upset. Ever since we got up this morning, we've been looking for it.
Oh, my, exclaimed Miss Tilly.
I'm sure Aunt Snootie is very sad. I know how much that pen meant to her. I believe her father got it from a very wealthy home where he lived. What do you think could have happened to it, boys?
Said and Ted looked very ashamed as Ted answered in a low voice,
She thinks it was stolen by one of the young mice.
Stolen? Why, I'm sure none of our mice would do such a thing. Miss Tilly thought a moment. And just to prove it, we're going to clean this schoolroom. I want all of you to search your desks. Put everything out on top so that I may see. They need a good cleaning anyway. I'll clean my desk, too. Soon there was a lot of talking in that room.
Hey, look what I found,
Cried Freddie Fieldmouse.
last week's homework assignment I thought I lost.
He waved a bent-up piece of paper.
Oh, yuck.
Groaned Clristopher Churchmouse in disgust, pulling out a moldy, half-eaten sandwich from his desk.
Look at this. Chris, nice lunch you got there.
Snickered one of the mice boys.
Have a bite.
Christopher laughed, waving it toward the boy's nose.
I found my book I lost last month.
Cried Mandy Mouse. The mice cleaned and searched for the pen nearly all day. At last, it was time to go home.
Phew,
Muttered Freddie Fieldmouse to Clristopher.
that was some day. I'm exhausted.
Me too, said Clristopher. Then he laughed and wiped off a big smudge on Freddie's face.
It looks like you're wearing half the dirt home, Freddie.
When Clristopher got home, Mama had his favorite cookies waiting. He sat down and told her all about his day. That's too bad, said Mama sympathetically, sitting down at the table with Clristopher. I was with Aunt Snootie this afternoon, trying to help her think of all the places she could have left that pen herself.
Well, I think it's terrible,
Fussed Clristopher, taking a big bite of his second cookie. What's terrible, Clristopher?
the way Aunt Snootie is accusing all of us mice of stealing her pen. Who'd want our old pen anyway? I'll bet it's not even gold.
Christopher, said Mama, it's very important to Aunt Snootie, whatever it's made of.
Yes, Mama.
That evening, Christopher went to Ced's home to play. They were all settled upstairs playing checkers when Uncle Rudy called Ced.
Coming,
Ced called back. He looked at Christopher.
I'll be right back. Don't you cheat while I'm gone.
I won't, laughed Christopher. He watched Ced run down the stairs. Then he looked around the room.
Maybe I should look for Aunt Snootie's pen here while I'm waiting.
He walked stealthily over to Ced's desk.
There's nothing wrong with just poking around to see what I can find.
He looked over his shoulder to make sure Ced wasn't coming back yet, then turned over a couple of papers that were on the desk. What? There was Aunt Snootie's pen. Christopher picked it up and then dropped it as if it were a hot coal.
Didn't Ced know the pen was there? He must know. My,
Christopher thought.
Ced must have stolen his own mother's pen. He usually needs a pen. He's always losing his.
Suddenly, he heard Ced starting up the stairs. Christopher pushed the papers back over the pen and sat down before the checkerboard.
Did you cheat?
Asked Ced.
I told you I wouldn't,
answered Christopher, giving Ced a long, hard look.
Could Ced actually have stolen something from his own mother?
The next day, Christopher was walking to school with his friend, Freddie Fieldmouse.
I sure hope today's a better day than yesterday,
said Freddie.
It will be. We won't have to look for that old pen again, said Christopher.
He continued softly.
Freddie, I've got a secret to tell you, but you've got to promise not to tell anybody. I promise. I could get in big trouble if you tell.
Giving a look in both directions to be sure no one was listening, Christopher whispered into Freddie's ear.
What?
Shrieked Freddie excitedly.
Shh!
Hissed Christopher with alarm.
Someone will hear us and wonder what we're talking about. Are you sure he stole it? Well, I saw it, right on his desk.
At recess that day, Christopher and a couple of his other friends were playing together when Mandy Mouse came over to join them. She was carrying a small bag of candy.
What do you have in there, Mandy?
Christopher asked with interest.
Some candy,
mumbled Mandy with her mouth full of the delicious stuff.
May I have a piece, please?
Begged Christopher.
I only have 2 more,
Mandy said reluctantly.
I'll tell you a secret if you'll give me a piece,
promised Christopher.
Is it a good secret? Oh, yes, I know who stole Aunt Snootie's pen.
Mandy's eyes got big and round, and she handed Christopher a piece of candy as she listened.
Whoever would think that?
She exclaimed.
Think what?
Questioned a cute little girl mouse coming up behind Mandy.
Oh, can't tell you,
said Mandy smugly.
It's a secret. See that you don't,
warned Christopher as he joined the mice boys again. The next day at school, the little mice were in an uproar. It seemed that all of the mice knew Ced had stolen his mother's pen and were standing around talking about it. Whenever Ced came near, they stopped. At lunchtime, Ced went home and didn't come back. Several of the mice children in the yard began to tease his brother Ted.
Hey, Ted, where's your big brother? Gone out to steal something else? You all be quiet, screamed Ted. My brother is not a thief.
Christopher and Freddie watched Ted out the window.
I'm sorry for him, Chris,
said Freddie sadly.
Yes, I am too, agreed Christopher. It must be really hard when your own brother does something like that.
That evening, Christopher was doing his homework when Aunt Snootie bustled in to see Mama. I just had to stop by and tell you that I have found my gold pen, cried Aunt Snootie with excitement. Why, that's wonderful, said Mamma. Wherever did you find it? Well, I remembered I was helping Ced with his homework in his room. I looked, and there it was under some papers on his desk, just where I had left it. I'm sorry if I caused you any trouble, gushed Aunt Snootie on her way out the door. You know my father gave it to me. Christopher sat frozen in horror as he watched Aunt Snootie leave.
Aunt Snootie has found her pen, Christopher, said Papa. Did you hear her?
Yes, I heard,
said Christopher with a sickly tone. Isn't that wonderful? Enthused Mamma.
Yes, really wonderful,
murmured Chris in a flat voice. He trudged to his room. The whole school would know tomorrow. He had misjudged his cousin and told the mice that Ced was a thief. Christopher laid his head down on his desk and began to cry.
Why, son, is your homework that hard?
Asked Papa from the doorway. Christopher jumped at his voice. No, he sobbed. Oh, Papa, I've done a terrible bad thing. And he explained it all to him. Just then a knock came at the door. Papa went to answer it. Christopher peeked from his room.
Good evening, Uncle Rudy. Won't you come in? What can I do for you? I'm not sure, said Uncle Rudy in a very stern voice. My boys tell me that Christopher has been spreading lies in school that Ced is a thief. I understand that Ced was so hurt and embarrassed that he couldn't even go back to school after lunch.
Yes, Chris was just telling me what happened. May I say how sorry I am? I will make sure that Christopher makes it right at school.
Very well,
said Uncle Rudy in a strained voice, shaking Papa's paw. When the door closed, Papa motioned Christopher into the living room.
But Papa, I didn't tell the whole school. I just told Freddie and Mandy, and I told them not to tell.
Sit down beside me and let's talk, said Papa, patting the sofa beside him. Do you remember the verse the children's Sunday school teacher was teaching the other day about the tongue?
I guess I don't,
admitted Christopher. She said the Bible says in James 3:5, the tongue is a small part of our body, but it makes great boasts.
Our tongues are small,
said Chris, trying to stick his out far enough to see it.
Yes, that's right, agreed Papa. The tongue is small, but the verse says it makes great boasts.
That means it can cause a lot of hurt and pain. I think we've seen tonight just how much harm it can cause, haven't we? Christopher looked at Papa with big, tearful eyes and nodded his head.
Oh, yes, Papa, and I am so sorry.
Papa wiped a tear from Christopher's cheek and said, If we can't say something nice about someone, we probably shouldn't say anything at all. The Bible also says that when we have a problem with someone, we should go right to them first about it. If you had gone to Ced and asked him about the pen, this would never have happened.
I know, Papa,
said the sad little mouse. Chris, let's go to Ced's home tonight so you can ask his forgiveness. Then tomorrow you must go to school and tell your whole class what you have done and how sorry you are. That is the only way to make it right.
Oh, Papa, that will be very hard,
cried Christopher. I know it will be, son, but that is using your tongue the right way. And Christopher learned that night how to use his tongue. It was a lesson he would never forget. Would you say this verse with me? Then I'll explain what it means. If your brother sins, go and reprove him in private. Matthew chapter 18, verse 15. Reprove means to correct someone or tell them that they have done something wrong. So this verse means if someone does something that is not right, you are to tell them, but don't tell them in front of other people. Let's say the verse one more time. If your brother sins, go and reprove him in private. Matthew chapter 18, verse 15. I'd like for you to think about some of the things that happened in the story and answer these questions. What were all of the mice upset about? Why was the pen so important to Aunt Snootie? Why didn't Ced come back to school after lunch? What should Clristopher have done when he found the pen?
There's a part of our body so small, it shouldn't give trouble at all. But you wouldn't believe how it can deceive. It's only our tiny little tongue. On and on this rattle will go, talking stories that simply aren't so. It will gossip all day in its own silly way. It's only our tiny little tongue. God's word tells us what we should do. Speak only those things that are true. If some good you can't speak, keep your tongue in your cheek. Don't open your mouth up at all.
You've just seen 2 stories of Clristopher Churchmouse and his little friends. Be sure to see Clristopher's other great video adventures as well. You can also read about him in each Clristopher Churchmouse classic. Clristopher Churchmouse classics are available alone and in book cassette format, ideal for early readers and preschoolers who want to read while they listen. All 12 Clristopher Churchmouse classics are beautifully illustrated, high-quality cloth-bound books that are thoroughly entertaining and teach important spiritual truths. So, be prepared. Your kids may want you to read Clristopher Churchmouse classics again and again and again.